Hey there YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Frontier Michigan. This video is going to be a little bit different and kind of want to address the trolls that claim that the steering in the Frontier is burdensomely heavy or way too heavy, or it's like the worst steering out there that people have ever felt. And I just want to say that the people that make the claim that it's the worst and heaviest steering they have ever felt have either one, only had their license since 2010, which is about the point that electrically assisted and electric power steering started becoming a thing in the US. Two, have never driven anything with hydraulic steering. Or three, are simply just trolling for the sake of trolling because they know nothing else and have never actually touched a vehicle with hydraulic steering. So I'm going to demonstrate once and for all that the steering isn't actually that heavy. How I'm going to do this? Well, I'm going to drive it slow speed one-handed, but I'm not just going to do slow speed one-handed. You'll see. And to caveat this, I have had, the Frontier makes my 13th vehicle that I have had. It's been, you know, a decent mix of electrically assisted and hydraulic steering. Mostly being hydraulic steering. The oldest vehicle I've had was a 99 Saturn that had no power steering because the power steering was gone. I had a 06 Canyon where the power steering pump had failed on that. No power steering, wasn't an issue driving. I had an 04 Eclipse. Power steering had failed on that. Yes, I know, these are all beaters, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Wasn't an issue with that. Even maneuvering in a parking lot with no power steering, not a problem. And for the record, I'm not the biggest guy. I'm 5'5", nor am I the strongest guy. You know, in fact, I'm out of shape and will admit that any day of the week. I'm 5'5", 190 pounds. I'm a bit fat. It is what it is. There's reasons for that, and that's a topic for another day. But at the end of the day, I don't find this steering at all heavy. And I'm currently parked right now, one hand steering the truck. So it can't be that burdensomely heavy if I can steer it just fine one-handed, not even moving. So we're gonna roll around this little parking lot here and, you know, just drive it. Again, not even going to use my left hand. Oh, that seems pretty easy, you know, back and forth, one-handed. Look, I'm even rolling my hand over the wheel. Could I roll my hand over the wheel or palm it like this if the steering was burdensomely heavy? I'm just using my palm. I'm not even gripping the wheel. I'm letting the truck roll. Biggest complaint was low speed. Look, I'm palming it. One hand, palm. In what way is this heavy? I'm not even breathing hard. We're calling it 4 miles an hour, back and forth. Here's my thumb, just my thumb. Just my thumb. Haven't touched it with my other hand. No problem at all, just rolling along, 4 miles an hour. And what's funny, my first vehicle, 08 Grand Cherokee, hydraulic power steering, and to make it worse, I had a 25% underdrive pulley. Pinky, grabbing it with my pinky. Absolutely no problem. Pinky grabbed. Can't be that heavy. Of course, you give a little gas, it gets lighter. But just sitting here rolling around, it's not a problem, is it? I can roll my hand on it, flip, all this, palm it, like any other vehicle that has steering of any kind. And, you know, to give some of my background, I've worked at Roush. I've worked on anything that had power steering that was hydraulically based, like in the Super Duties. My own personal vehicles have mostly been hydraulic. I've been in the military as a military mechanic. Everything there is hydraulic. But at Roush, I worked in the TASI group, which is Thermal Aerosystems Engineering, where we outfitted vehicles for testing and benchmark purposes. Again, I still got terrible sinuses. And I've worked on everything from EVs, which are purely electric. I've worked on German vehicles, Audis, Mercedes, Volkswagens, you know, things like that. Most of those nowadays are electrically steering, as well as Asian stuff. So I've touched and driven pretty much everything on the market that's been out the last, you know, several years. And I still prefer the feel of hydraulics. Why? Well, yeah, the steering is a little heavier than an electrically assisted system. But here's the thing that you don't get with electric. There's no feedback. The steering wheel is numb. I don't know what the front wheels are doing. I can't tell if the wheels are attached or not. Why? Because the feeling of the wheel is dead. There's nothing there. There's no feedback. Hydraulic gives me feedback. I know what everything is doing. I prefer hydraulic. I don't find the system at all overly burdensome. Quite the opposite. And I also want to apologize to my normal viewers that, you know, this is kind of a bit uncharacteristic, but, you know, it's upsetting when you buy a vehicle and then all the trolls come out and start bashing it, and they've never had the vehicle. You know, y'all call me butthurt or whatever, but I want to prove a point. The steering is not as heavy as y'all make it out to be. You can talk all your smack all you want, but unless you've actually driven one, and I do mean more than 1,500 miles as one troll claimed that he did, you know, own it for some time. Do things with the truck. Off-road, tow, drag people out of ditches and snowbanks like I have, haul a bed full of wood more than once like I have, you know, load it down. Drive the thing, own the thing, you know. We're at 13,700 miles on the truck. I see no reason to go get rid of it because some troll says go trade in for a Tacoma. You know. And I'm sure some of my other fellow Frontier owners that post on YouTube probably experience a lot of the same crap. You know, you get these people that have never touched a truck in their life telling you to go trade it in on a Tacoma. Maybe if Toyota was a nicer company and didn't screw its customers over, or maybe if their build quality was actually better, I'd consider it. And you know, I did consider the Tacoma. I considered the outgoing 3rd gens as well as the newer 4th gens. There is nothing about those trucks that scream better value over the Frontier. They're already showing to be less reliable, not necessarily from the engine standpoint, but there's issues with the suspension blowing top hats. There's issues with transmissions overheating. You know, people are like, oh yeah, I could put 35s on a Tacoma. Yeah, you could, and then experience transmissions overheat. They just had a recall on some of the Tacomas because they're wearing through the brake lines, because the brake lines weren't routed properly. It's like you build an off-road truck and forgot how to route your brake lines so that they don't get eaten apart by the tires. You know, the glove box in a Tacoma rattles around. There's no rear seat room. I've seen the hoods on some of them rattle around. There's videos of this all over YouTube. There's videos showing the top hats and the shocks being blown out. You know, people out here riding the Toyota name based on past brand reliability. That reliability is not around no more. It's gone. Toyota is not what it used to be. If it was, they'd still be the #1 most reliable brand, and they're not. They've been surpassed by Subaru of all companies. You know, the company that historically has always blown head gaskets. You know, there's a reason why Subaru gets hated on and memed for its head gaskets. Yeah, Toyota got beat by Subaru. And of course, someone's gonna be like, well, Toyota owns Subaru. No, Toyota owns a small stake in Subaru, not a majority stake. And that's done simply to build the BRZ and GT86. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm ranting. I know the video is in a vertical format. I'm missing a piece to my GoPro setup to orient it differently. But this vertical gives me a better view of the steering wheel. So yeah, bit of a different little video, bit of a rant, but it is what it is. Sorry for those that, you know, see this, because, you know, it's not my usual thing. But it had to be addressed. So, appreciate you guys watching, sticking around. Comment down below. We'll have an honest discussion about it. And I'm all for honest discussion. You want to have an honest discussion, we could do that. But it is what it is. I'm not going to make a big deal about it beyond this video. So, it's whatever. So this has been an episode of Frontier Michigan. See you all next time. Be safe out there. Weather's getting nice. Get out there and have some fun. Because I am.